It is a Tuesday in Seattle. The restaurant is one he has been to approximately 40 times, a sushi counter near the waterfront, the kind of place where the chef knows his face if not his name. He sits in the same spot. He orders the same thing: Pacific salmon sashimi, wild caught, sliced thin, served on a cold ceramic plate with a small mound of grated ginger on the side. The fish is the color of a sunset. It tastes exactly the way it always tastes. He eats slowly. He is not in a hurry. He pays the bill, tips 20%, and walks back to his car through the particular damp cold that Seattle does better than anywhere else. The drive home is unremarkable. He parks, goes inside, watches something on television, and falls asleep. Nothing about this Tuesday is different from the 40 Tuesdays before it. Same fish, same chef, same preparation, same drive home. In approximately 8 weeks, he will make a different drive across the city. There will be something on the passenger seat beside him, a Ziploc bag. He will carry the bag into an emergency room and place it on the intake desk. When the nurse asks him what he is presenting with, he will say, "I think this came out of me." The bag will be still partially moving. That detail will sit with you. It should. But we are not there yet. Because to understand what is in that bag, you first need to understand what was already inside him when he drove home on that unremarkable Tuesday. And to understand what changed on visit 41, when 39 identical visits caused him no harm at all, you need to understand something about the specific passenger he brought home without knowing it. The organism is called Diphyllobothrium nihonkaiense. It is the broad fish tapeworm of the Pacific, and it holds a distinction that sounds like it belongs in fiction. It is the largest parasite known to infect the human body. The maximum recorded length in a human host is 15 meters, roughly the length of a city bus. The specimen recovered in this case was 5 meters long. Laid flat, that is approximately the height of a 2-story building. It is not a metaphor. It is a measurement. It begins as something almost impossibly small. Inside the muscle tissue of wild-caught Pacific salmon, Diphyllobothrium nihonkaiense exists in a larval form called a plerocercoid, a coiled microscopic structure encysted between the muscle fibers of the fish. It is invisible to the naked eye. It has no odor. It has no taste. It does not change the color or texture of the flesh. A skilled sushi chef cannot see it. A careful diner cannot taste it. It survives the journey from the cold Pacific to the fish market, to the refrigerated case, to the cutting board, to the ceramic plate. When it is swallowed, it is still alive. In the warmth of the small intestine, the larva emerges from its cyst. It travels toward the intestinal wall. At its head, a structure called the scolex, equipped with grooves that function like biological anchors, it attaches to the intestinal lining, and then it begins to grow. Under ideal conditions, Diphyllobothrium nihonkaiense can add up to 22 centimeters of body length per day. The small intestine is warm, dark, and perpetually supplied with partially digested nutrients. It is, from the worm's perspective, a perfect environment. Every meal the host eats, the worm eats first. For the first 6 weeks after that Tuesday, the man in Seattle has no idea any of this is happening. This is not unusual. Studies estimate that between 20 and 30% of Diphyllobothrium infections never produce symptoms at all. The worm lives out its entire span inside a host who never knows it was there. The parasite does not tear tissue. It does not cause fever. It does not trigger the kind of acute immune response that announces an infection. In the early weeks, it does not even cause pain. What it does cause, slowly over weeks, is competition. Diphyllobothrium nihonkaiense has a particular affinity for vitamin B12, which it absorbs from the intestinal environment with high efficiency. B12 deficiency takes time to manifest. Fatigue, mild cognitive fog, a vague sense of running slightly below capacity. The kind of feeling a busy person attributes to not sleeping enough, to stress, to the ordinary friction of a full life. Here's the detail that stops most people. He goes back. Sometime during this 6-week window, he returns to the restaurant. He orders salmon again. He has no reason not to. He eats the fish. He drives home. He goes to sleep. The worm, now perhaps 60 centimeters long, continues growing. Around week 6, he notices he's losing weight. Not dramatically, 3 pounds, then 4, then 5. What is strange is the direction of the causality. He is eating more than usual, not less. His appetite has increased. He is finishing meals and still feeling hollowed out afterward, the way you feel after eating food that looks substantial, but left you hungry an hour later. He attributes this to stress. He is not entirely wrong. Something is, in fact, consuming him. It is simply not the thing he suspects. By week 8, the silence ends. The abdominal cramping begins intermittently, not severe, not localized to any specific point, the kind of discomfort that could be 100 different things. He takes antacids. He drinks more water. He types stomach cramps after eating into a search engine and reads 3 articles about irritable bowel syndrome. This is the diagnostic gap that defines most tapeworm cases in developed countries. When Diphyllobothrium nihonkaiense produces symptoms at all, those symptoms, fatigue, mild nausea, vague abdominal discomfort, unexplained weight loss, are indistinguishable from a dozen far more common conditions. There is no specific pain signature. There is no rash. There is no fever that would send someone to a doctor. The 2018 case documented by California gastroenterologist Dr. Pritt and subsequently covered in the New England Journal of Medicine noted this explicitly. The patient sought no medical attention during the symptomatic phase because nothing felt severe enough to warrant it. He was uncomfortable. He was not, by any reasonable measure, sick. Then one morning, everything changes in a way that has no prior analog in his experience. He wakes up. Something is wrong in a register he has never encountered before. Not painful, not like illness, but deeply, fundamentally wrong in a way the body communicates before the mind has language for it. Something is coming out of him that is not stool. It is flat. It is pale. It is segmented, like a long ribbon of linked tiles, and it is moving. This is the image that was planted at the beginning, the Ziploc bag on the passenger seat. He does not panic, or if he does, he converts the panic into action with a speed that, in retrospect, is remarkable. He finds a bag. He collects what has emerged. He gets in his car. He drives to the nearest emergency room across a city that is going about its Tuesday morning without any awareness of what is crossing it on the passenger seat beside him. The bag contains approximately 5 meters of flat, segmented, still partially moving tapeworm. He carries it inside. He places it on the intake desk. He says, "I think this came out of me." The ER staff, people who have, collectively, seen most things, pause. The bag is taken to pathology, he is admitted. Clinical identification is rapid. The proglottids, the individual segments of the worm's body, have a characteristic morphology that makes Diphyllobothrium nihonkaiense identifiable under a microscope without ambiguity. The worm that passed was approximately 5 meters in length. The standard maximum length for this species in a human host is 9 meters. There may be more inside. This detail arrives in the clinical notes, the way a second door opens in a room you thought you understood. What do you do when you have found 5 meters of a 9-meter worm? You treat the infection, and then you count. The treatment itself is elegant in its simplicity. Praziquantel, the standard antihelminthic medication, is administered as a single oral dose. It works by disrupting the worm's ability to regulate calcium across its cell membranes, causing rapid paralysis followed by disintegration. The worm cannot grip. It cannot feed. It begins to die within hours of the dose, and the body expels what remains over the following days. But the clinical problem is confirmation. To be certain the infection is fully resolved, every subsequent bowel movement must be examined. Every proglottid, every segment must be recovered and accounted for. If the scolex, the hooked head structure anchored to the intestinal wall, is not recovered, the worm can regenerate from that attachment point. A new body can grow from the surviving head. The treatment would need to begin again. For 3 days, every bowel movement is collected, examined, and cataloged by hospital staff. The narration will not linger on this process longer than necessary, except to observe that it is, by any measure, one of the more undignified experiences modern medicine asks of a patient, and that the patient cooperates fully because he understands what is at stake. What's your reaction to that detail, the 3 days of examination? Because most people, when they hear it, feel something specific. Drop it in the comments. It's the moment this case stops being abstract. On day 3, the scolex is recovered, the infection is confirmed resolved, he is discharged. He has lost approximately 8 pounds over the course of 2 months. Weight that will not return immediately. Weight that belonged, in some biological sense, to something else. Now here is where the story stops being about one man in Seattle and starts being about every raw fish counter in the United States. The FDA recommends, and that word will matter in a moment, that fish intended for raw consumption be frozen at negative 20 degrees Celsius for 7 days or at negative 35 degrees Celsius for 15 hours before it is served. Either protocol kills Diphyllobothrium larvae reliably. The science is not in dispute. The cold kills the plerocercoid. The plerocercoid cannot survive the freezer. This is a solved problem. The critical word is recommends. There is no federal law in the United States requiring sushi restaurants to comply with FDA freezing guidelines. The term sushi grade, the label you see on menus, on fish counters, on packaging, has no legal definition. It is a marketing designation. It is not a safety certification. No government body issues it. No inspection confirms it. A restaurant can call its fish sushi grade and serve it without ever having frozen it, and no law is broken. A 2017 study published in the journal Emerging Infectious Diseases examined wild-caught Pacific salmon from Alaskan waters and found Diphyllobothrium nihonkaiense larvae in 75% of the fish sampled. 3 out of 4 fish. The Pacific Northwest, Seattle specifically, sources heavily from wild-caught Pacific salmon, which carries significantly higher larval loads than farmed Atlantic salmon. Farmed salmon, raised in controlled environments and fed processed feed, does not encounter the intermediate hosts through which Diphyllobothrium spreads. Wild-caught fish, pulled from the open Pacific, does. The restaurant in this case was not cited following the incident. It was not inspected as a direct result of what happened. It is, in all likelihood, still serving Pacific salmon sashimi, prepared the same way it was prepared on the 41st Tuesday. Which brings us back to the restaurant. The counter. The fish. The color of a sunset. The man in this case has, by all reasonable inference from cases of this type, resumed eating sushi. This is not presented as reckless. It is presented as the ordinary human arithmetic of invisible risk. We eat things that could harm us because the harm is statistically distant, because the pleasure is immediate, because the alternative, abandoning every food that carries any theoretical danger, is a way of living that most people find worse than the risk itself. He knows now what he did not know before. He also knows that most of the 40 times before the 41st, the fish was probably fine. Cases of Diphyllobothrium infection in the United States are rising. Between 2000 and 2017, reported cases increased by 283%. Not because the parasite is new. It has been documented in human hosts for over a century, but because sushi consumption in America has grown from a niche market to a $45 billion industry. More raw Pacific salmon is being eaten. More of it is being eaten without confirmed freezing protocols. The 2018 California case that generated the most clinical documentation and media coverage was not an anomaly in the epidemiological record. It was a data point in a trend line that is moving in one direction. There is no clean warning to end on here. No list of safe restaurants. No certification to look for on a menu because the certification does not exist. There is only this. Every time you have eaten raw Pacific salmon in the United States, you have been placing your trust in a freezer you never saw, operated by a kitchen you never entered, following guidelines that carry no legal penalty for non-compliance. A recommendation, not a requirement. A marketing term, not a safety standard. Between the fish and your plate, a chain of decisions made by people you will never meet, in rooms you will never see, about a larva you cannot taste. Most of the time, this works out. Most of the time, the man drives home on a Tuesday, and the fish is fine, and nothing is different, and he goes to sleep, and Tuesday becomes Wednesday, and the cold ceramic plate is washed and dried and set out again for the next customer. He sat down 41 times. 40 times, nothing happened. The 41st time, he drove home with something that would spend 8 weeks eating before he ever knew it was there. The fish looked exactly the same every single time, most of the time.